One. Hey, everybody, welcome back. I'm Susan Lindner, your host of the Innovation Storyteller Show, where we get behind the innovation and talk about the crucial stories that have to be told in order to get your big idea across the finish line. And I'm really excited for my guest today because we had the good fortune of meeting at the Innovators Conference in Arizona back in March, I want to say, or was it April? I've been on too many
It
planes.
was April. It was early April.
Early April, and it was still 100 degrees in Arizona in early April. Somehow I was sweating at breakfast. But it was a fantastic conference. If you don't know Innovators, Innovate with the number 8, earth.co, you can find it on the Innovation Storytellers website, is a phenomenal organization of incredible innovators that get together a couple times a year around the world to talk about best practices in innovation. And I had the good fortune to meet my guest, Ed Essey, who is the director of business value in the Microsoft Garage, where he helps turn bold ideas into real world impact. And I got to hear him speak, and he was just phenomenal, kind of laying out all the secret sauce behind Microsoft's innovation engine. As the creator of the Garage Growth Framework, he has led programs that secure executive sponsorship at an 85% success rate. How many of us would love that? Launching hundreds of projects at Microsoft. He's an MIT graduate, a serial founder, and a product leader. Ed specializes in early stage innovation, AI, and bridging people with technology. That is one serious bridge. His upcoming book, The Inside Job, is a heist-themed guide to corporate innovation. A mindful leader, he empowers people to know their worth and use their gifts to change the world wisely. Ed, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. I'm just thrilled to be sitting down and talking with you again after Innovators.
Susan, thanks for having me on. And it was great having you in the audience. And you were the first person I debriefed with after my talk. We sat at the table together and I met you there for the first time. And I'm glad to be here talking with you again.
Well, storyteller knows storyteller, so I guess we bonded over that.
Yeah.
Well, after that talk, I was just kind of blown away really by the scale of Microsoft Garage. Like, I don't think I certainly knew of it. I just didn't know the depth and breadth and how much it was driving employee innovation,
Mm.
the innovation kind of portfolio of Microsoft, and how it kept this kind of innovative heartbeat alive at Microsoft. So, for my audience, who we have listeners all over the world, for people who aren't familiar with the Microsoft Garage, can you just give us like the basic primer and then we'll dive into some of the really cool things that have spun out of the garage?
Yeah, absolutely, Susan. The Garage is a program for accelerating the cultural transformation of Microsoft by providing employees opportunities to be creative, collaborate, and experiment, all on the theme of innovation. So it harkens back to the days when Microsoft was founded just a little over 50 years ago now. We just celebrated our 50th anniversary a few weeks ago, but it was founded by Bill Gates and Paul Allen in a garage in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So it was it was created to be this time that brought back that founding energy and spirit so
Mhm.
that every employee around the world can tap into it.
And so this got started at HQ and then spread throughout the organization. Tell us a little bit about that growth for our innovators who are listening who would love to have their own garage.
Sure. So it was founded in around 2008, 2009 as a part of Office Labs. It began as a conversation between an employee and their manager, like, hey, I want to try this idea, see if we could get people to show up. One of the earliest ideas was like speed dating ideas between like getting designers and developers to meet each other and see if they clicked and they could work on things. I didn't join it as an employee until 2014. So at the time, there was only one full-time employee running it. As he was leaving, I came in and took over. That was right before Satya Nadella became our CEO.
Mm.
And it turned out Satya was already a big fan of the garage. When we were holding events like hackathons and science fairs, he would actually be a judge and come through and talk to a lot of the projects. And so when he became the CEO of the company, there was the first moment where that was announced to the company. But the first thing he did as CEO was he held a town hall, and he held that town hall
Hmm.
in the garage headquarters in Redmond. The garage grew from one person to a larger team. And with Satya regularly, like our new CEO, regularly holding events in the garage and supporting the garage. And he even decided to replace the company meeting with the hackathon that the garage ran. That was like our inflection point moment from being a number of smaller chapters organized by one person and an army of volunteers to it becoming the big growth it has now, where we have hackathons with over 20,000 projects.
Wow. So what a shift, right? And how important it is to have senior level engagement on all innovation projects, don't you think?
Absolutely. Like, too many innovation projects or programs sort of operate like a speakeasy where they're afraid, they're worried about a leader from the top saying, "Oh, is this aligned? Is this not aligned? Like, can you show me some hockey stick chart with a projection of how it's going to have billions of dollars of revenue by a certain year?" And that's just the recipe for innovators' dilemma right there. In some cases, they're absolutely right. You need to make sure that big risks aren't coming. You can't have a small innovative idea like crashing your company. At the same time, you need to allow innovation to happen and bubble up from the bottom. So the garage became that method where we were able to basically connect the double-sided market, the executives to the grassroots innovators. So instead of thinking of it top bottom, I like to think of it as a double-sided market where the executives are able to issue challenges and opportunities of what they care about, and the innovators are able to take them up, and then they work together.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the projects that are in there. And then I want to get into the storytelling behind the garage because
Great.
so many incredible innovation labs have closed. Google closed its labs, right? I mean, it's taken new forms and it's happening at the business unit level now. Walmart closed its big accelerator. And I'm so curious how Microsoft Garage continues to thrive at a time when this idea of setting an innovation practice into a garage, into its own island,
Hmm.
hasn't always been successful at some of the most innovative companies in the world.
Yeah. So to your point, when layoffs happen, rifts happen, like innovation programs are often the second to go after L&D programs, and that's usually first. Innovation programs that aren't adding value usually come second, and unaligned parts of sales organizations usually come third.
Mm.
So how I don't want to get the program in trouble here, and instead I'll share like what worked. Early early on, we did something that a lot of innovation programs don't do. So a lot of it comes to the word innovation. And there are three ways that I like to look at it. This insight came to me when I was touring a group of innovators from from Canada. They had come to visit the Microsoft Garage. I was touring them and I was explaining the program, and they were asking a lot of questions that didn't make sense given what I was talking about on the tour. And took a break, and I came back and I said, I think I realize, and I talked to a lot of people in the meanwhile. I came back and I said, I think I realize what's going on. A lot of people view innovation as a fruit, something you'll create and take to market. Others view innovation as a tree that could regularly produce fruit. So that's like a program, like an accelerator or an incubator.
Right.
And others view it as soil, where these trees and great fruit could come in. And that's how we had viewed it in the garage, as we were creating that cultural transformation. We happened to be really aligned with a time when cultural transformation really needed to happen in our company. We had a new leader coming in. We were trying new things. It led to a big phase of growth. We tied a lot of what we were doing to what leadership cared about in terms of metrics. So we did one thing. We were taking all the same metrics for culture and transformation that were happening, and we ran surveys with the exact same metrics, but one word changed, which was we would insert the garage in there instead of other things. So we were showing how we were aligned to what our leadership cared about the most through direct numbers of the exact same metrics that they cared about. What this did was it bought us patience to eventually work toward business value. And as the senior director of business value in the garage, this is something that I care about a lot. But we were not promising business value really early. We were aligning to the cultural value that we knew we could change and not trying to invest in one-off projects. Because what often happens for programs is they often don't have enough budget to have a large portfolio.
Right.
So if in that first year or two they don't have like a runaway success, those programs often shut down.
Yeah.
And
Or they just keep petering along and it's iterative iteration. It's like extensions of a product or a couple of new features, but it's not anything we would refer to as innovative. But I think what's really fascinating for me about it is the ability to harness employee power. I mean, certainly you have enough bright light bulbs in that company,
mhm.
right? But can you just give us a little sense of like how the structure works? Like it's spread into how many countries now, Ed?
Last I checked, it was 81.
81 countries, right? So employees in 81 countries are actively part of the innovation progress. So let's say I'm an employee at Microsoft. I have an idea. Just walk us, can you give us like a brief walkthrough of like, how does it actually function?
Right. Our main event that starts a lot for people is we run a company-wide hackathon.
Uh-huh.
And we run one annually, but we also create a platform, and there are around 50 to 80 any given week of smaller scale hackathons, but I'll focus on the big one.
Mm,
So last year was our 11th annual hackathon. We originally began with about, I think it was around 12,000 people showed up for the first one.
uh-huh.
That's a good amount of people. It was nearly 10% of the
Massive.
company. This past year, our 11th, we had over 20,000, not people, but projects.
Wow. And so you would assume how many employees is that total?
I This number might not be exactly right, but it was around 70,000 employees.
Wow. Fantastic.
So I think it's somewhere in the 65 to 80,000. But
Wow, amazing. Okay, so you get together for a hackathon. Is everybody working on the same problem or people are working on all different problems?
they're working on a lot of different things, but usually we have a common theme.
Mhm.
So we this will be an interesting origin story of how we got here if we have time for it.
Yeah.
But what we do is we work with a lot of the senior executives in the company, and we have them all issue challenges. Again, this is this double-sided market we create. We have executives issue challenges of things that they actually care about, that if this gets solved, they would want to invest in it. They would want to do something about it to move it forward. And then on the other hand, we issue those challenges to employees. And I actually help the executives like how to craft a challenge that's something that they care about. It's usually their staff I'm working with. How to craft a challenge that their exec would care about and do something about, and that their team isn't already working on, because you don't want to compete with something that has thousands of people already working on it or even hundreds. But then it also needs to be inspiring for the employees. And
Mm.
then we issue these. So last year we had around 33 of these challenges issued simultaneously for our big hackathon. And some of the challenges will have thousands of people and thousands of projects, and some will be in the high tens or hundreds.
So cool. And so tell us about some of the incredible successes, and then I want to hear some stories behind the innovations.
Sure, sure. So one one big one that I love is repowering coal. So it began with a fellow from Ireland. His name's Connor Kelly, who he grew up on farms in Ireland
Hmm.
and really connected to the land. And as he was growing up, he was realizing that there were all these threats to the environment, and he knew he wanted to do something about those as he got older. That continued to be something in his life. He eventually took a job at a tech company. He had this realization that there are a lot of coal plants around the world that are being mothballed.
Mm-hmm.
And we knew that for energy and the energy demands of data center and AI and so on, we need a future with better energy to protect this planet that Connor and we all love. So Connor uh, said, what if we could replace those coal plants with small modular nuclear reactors? They would allow those communities that had the old coal plants and who are now languishing because they don't have that source of employment anymore, it would give them a chance to come back up. The infrastructure is already there, the power grid's already there, the need for power exists. Nuclear power is the least risky and one of the cleanest forms of energy we have in abundance. Addressing this really well was needed, and he figured out a way to do it. He also figured out a way to create business value from it because managing and running these reactors would also consume data. So he was able to make it a like win-win-win-win scenario for everybody by addressing it. When he won our Hack for Sustainability challenge, he presented to the president and vice chair of Microsoft, who had issued this challenge. Microsoft has a big commitment to sustainability. Brad Smith loved it, spoke with it at Davos, continues to move forward. You might have seen announcements that 3 Mile Island in the United
Yes,
States is coming back online. That
it's all
began
over
with this
Twitter.
project.
Uh-huh.
It's easier and permitting wise to start with existing nuclear facilities and to bring them back. As we're working with coal, it turns out there's a big permitting issue there, and Connor has also developed something to speed up permitting and make that easier. But that's a different project and different story. But just happy to say that we have an external partnership with TerraPraxis to pull this online, and our companies behind it and bringing clean energy to the whole planet.
I mean, it's really extraordinary. I know this was thinking from Bill Gates, right? That he thought that nuclear could be a massive opportunity in energy and was really one of the driving forces to revitalize nuclear energy around the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So fascinating, right? That we're thinking about it. Meanwhile, politicians here are trying to revive the coal industry, and instead, Microsoft is going to revive 3 Mile Island in order to fuel AI driven data centers, right?
Yeah, I don't want to get too into the politics if that's okay.
Yeah, no, that's fine. But it's just fascinating how quickly can things move, right? When it has the right innovation arm behind it. So I'm curious about some of the stories of getting these innovations that come out of the garage into the world. And you have your own storytelling framework, right, on how you're helping Microsoft employees to really push their ideas forward.
That's right. So as I work with uh, part of my job is I and it's a really fun part of my job. These projects that win the hackathon challenges, I I'm the head coach of the program, and I coach these projects to move forward. Through it, we've created the Garage Growth Framework, which is what we've learned from over 10 years running the world's largest hackathon. One part of that, the part of helping them get sponsorship, is we help them think about storytelling to the sponsor. So a lot of innovators who've been part of Agile or Lean Startup or design thinking understand the importance of understanding your customer and bringing something to them that they care about. But people don't often do that with execs.
Mm.
With execs, they try to talk to get the exec to see it from their point of view. A big part of what I do is help you see it from the exec's point of view. Help the innovators see it from and if they could see it from the executive's point of view and get in their point of view and explain it from the exec's point of view, they're much more likely to get their ideas bought off. Like trying to have the exec see it from your way and just showing up with a project is like if somebody you didn't know, Susan, knocked on your door, like right now, like the doorbell rang, you go to the door, they're holding a puppy
Mm.
and they hand you a puppy and they say, Susan, would you like a puppy? Everybody likes puppies. It changes your life. It makes it better. Like, how would you react to the stranger showing up at your door with a puppy?
Not good. My building doesn't let me have animals, so it doesn't let me keep pets. So it would be problematic on many.
And how did they even get in your building in the first place? And
My
all of that,
building.
right?
Yeah, I probably snuck in behind my Grubhub guy, but that's fine.
Yeah, so this is what a lot of innovators are doing, showing up to execs with a puppy and trying to explain to the exec why they want a puppy.
Right. And or maybe 10 puppies with a price tag.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like free as a puppy, right? It's
A puppy's not free. Puppy has a big price tag associated with it.
yeah, it's not a free lunch, right? It's
Oh.
a so instead, you need to find out if they want a puppy, what kind of puppy they want, if they'd rather have a cat, if they'd rather have lunch, like what is it? And if you build that relationship and show up with an answer, like, and you're already aligned and you show up with an answer that they care about, you've already worked with people on their team, this works well. So what I do in storytelling is I kind of invert a model that people know already. Like we're inundated all the time with this like pitch, what's in it for you, how that affects the world, how that affecting the world's in it for you. This is how advertising does it. I call it a diamond shaped pitch.
Okay.
With sponsors and investors, I actually invert that. What is the big vision that you're trying to change in the world? What's our initial starting point? And then what, through a series of phases, how are we going to get from that initial starting point to the big vision? It shows executives that you understand visions that align to them. The initial starting point shows you know how to be pragmatic and understand the market. And executives will often ask you a lot of questions about it and a lot of details. And maybe you pick a different starting point, and that's fine. But you're able to have that conversation with them and about approach they believe in. Then if you're able to show how you could operationally walk through a series of phases that could be stage gated with like a small price tag or none at first to gradually larger ones, you're getting their buy-in along the way before they eventually take over the whole thing. It's also showing you're able to be pragmatic. And so we take this hourglass structure and we overlay a conversational structure on it. You want to guide in a meeting, you want to guide them on a journey to understand, care, and then act.
Mm-hmm. And so that understanding is an education piece first. Is that what the understand is for?
Yes. So understanding is just showing that you have a shared understanding of the world. So it's not that you're educating them to come into your circle. It's showing them that you already understand what their circle is and that you know how to be a part of it.
Right. You can be part of their ecosystem effortlessly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about some of these stories that have worked, that have gotten people to say yes to what would ordinarily seem like maybe a tough sell.
Yeah. So I'll start with another project that I really like. It's led by a man named Roberto D'Angelo. The project's called MirrorHR. Roberto's son, Mario, had a stroke when he was young
Mm,
that very young led to cerebral palsy, and he was having a lot of seizures every night.
mm.
And Roberto wanted to help his son and came to the realization, and I love this quote from him. It's, in order to help my son, I have to help everyone like him.
Okay.
So Roberto created a project that is about helping families of children with epilepsy reduce the number and severity of seizures in those children. And he's created a nonprofit to move it forward and a lot of other things like that. But he's done it while working within Microsoft. He learned the healthcare industry really well. He got to know the families really well. He got to understand that many of them feel hopeless, helpless, and alone. Many of them have not gone a single night without being interrupted by a seizure in
Oh,
7 or more years.
wow. Wow.
Imagine that. So the first thing he wanted to do was help them with that. They couldn't, and in some ways they couldn't sleep at night because what if their kid's going to have a seizure? So they would have the kids until the age of 7 or even later sleep in the same bed with them. So if the seizure would happen, they would be there to help.
Oh, wow. That's rough.
I'm gonna I'm gonna I'm gonna say a little bit. Roberto figured out an answer to help this part. He found that if you put an Apple Watch on the kid's wrist and that there was a particular sensor in this that that the data was really good at measuring heart rate variability, which could predict which could help to predict a seizure before it happens. So they were using AI and machine learning to see the patterns in the sensors in the kids and predict them so that they could alert the parents before it happened.
Wow.
They found for some kids you actually have to put on their foot because they move their hands too much and it was damaging or throwing off the watch, but on the foot it worked better. So there were all these little things we were learning. They were learning things like the little laser that's on the back of the watch could actually burn an infant's skin if you're under one. So they would put a piece of gauze on it. Like all of these little things of innovation that Susan, like you and your audience probably know really well, but they have to be learned through experience.
Yeah.
So anyway, they learned all these things. But not only that, but they realized that this data they were collecting, the family and other caregivers, along with the doctors, could become partners together in this. They
Mm,
created another they created another part of this that was like a digital diary, made it really easy through spoken word to share a little bit about what was happening every day. I'll
mm.
set you back in time. This was 2019. This was not the time where we had access to LLMs that could easily process data and spoken word. So they were creating models to do this so that they could encode this. Now, a really cool part of this story, they got thousands of families on board. It was People were able to sleep through the night again. They were figuring out ways with these diaries to understand the patterns that would lead to seizures before they happened. Like one thing Roberto noticed was Mario would have a lot more seizures in an evening if Mario saw Roberto's suitcases out. So if Roberto had to go on a business trip and his suitcase came out, his son might have 50 seizures that night.
Wow.
So understanding this, they realized they had to have conversations with Mario about this so that he would understand his father was going to go but come back and other things like this. So families have to learn, like, are able to use this data and these insights to like spot these patterns and be able to talk to kids. Now, I'm really happy to report that Mario just went 500 consecutive nights without a seizure. His dad is able to travel for work without his son worrying about it. As part of celebrating this, Roberto and the Fight the Stroke Foundation recently open sourced their entire model so people can build and contribute to it.
How amazing.
Now inside, you would ask me the question, how did he get the support? Because obviously the support had to happen to get there. And this work is not directly aligned to a business of Microsoft's. So yes, there's the goodwill component of this, but Roberto also has a role in healthcare. So he's now the director of a healthcare program within Microsoft that works with customers in healthcare, sharing with them the methods. Roberto also understood that while children with epilepsy was a 70 million person market, that's actually not that large of a market from the scale we operate in. But when we notice that common patterns for that and others, what we refer to as the long tail of healthcare, if we were able to aggregate all of that up, it was a big market. So
Mm.
when we talked about the big vision in the hourglass, we could talk about that huge size of the market, how building AI expertise in any one of these small markets, so the initial starting point could be children with a very specific type of epilepsy between certain ages, and how understanding that and building models in it and building and getting this kind of knowledge, like sometimes you have to put the sensor on the ankle, sometimes you have to put a piece of tape on it. Learning all of those things eventually let them scale to other markets so that we're able to help larger healthcare providers with what they're doing and build richer data models under the covers that would be able to do it.
Mm. So what was the story that needed to be told in order to get to yes for this?
It had to be that the vision that the market was larger and that it was possible, that it also had to show individual people that were affected, because understanding the individuals helped people build empathy.
Mm-hmm.
And it had to put the executives in a spot to show them that they could do something about this problem. So with Roberto's realization that in order to help Mario, he had to help everybody like him. And then that would eventually help Mario. For the executives, they had to see that in order to achieve this big vision, they had to help Mario first
Mm.
and use the lessons learned from that to help everyone like him, and people who maybe not like him with that same disease could help other people with diseases that could be addressed with similar patterns.
Yeah. So Mario was the pilot effectively.
Yes.
And so what came of that? What happened?
So the sorry, is it cut okay? I'm sorry.
Fine.
Okay. Other than what I had shared before,
Yeah, meaning like
or did
it's
you want me to just say it in a different way and you were going to cut out the other part?
no, meaning this I think what's fascinating about it is the ability for ideas like this to spread. And is there like an ongoing desire to create more of these kinds of solutions at Microsoft moving forward? Is this like a one-off opportunity, or is this the kind of thing that now we'll see more and more of these issues related to accessibility or different groups that Microsoft might not have originally thought about? They're trying to deal with one singular opportunity here, right? An incredible need, but winds up generating so much more than originally intended.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So here's what happened. In addition to Mario having gone 500 nights without a seizure and lots of other families benefiting,
Right.
also in addition to this project getting supported by Microsoft, it ended up being best as a nonprofit so that could focus, but Microsoft builds technologies that support that. Microsoft also has a larger investment in healthcare and a lot of research in healthcare that builds more models that are supporting this and other things like it. So we
Mhm.
have larger investments in this kind of space. Now, I won't say that this was the only thing that made that happen, because that's not true. There were a lot of people investing in healthcare and believing in healthcare. but this was a pilot and a part of the story that we turned to again and again about how innovation in this space can make a difference. And I would even say that the user experiences and models and models we learned, how they could apply to AI models. Again, that thing we talked about at the beginning, bridging human and tech. Uh,
Right.
Learning how both of those types of models can work together and how Microsoft can contribute to both of them is a big part of what's happened.
Yeah. Because so often the other thing that happens with great innovation, sometimes it just gets siloed, right? It gets holed off into one great project that winds up becoming this exemplar, but it doesn't necessarily doesn't get to permeate through the rest of the organization. I think that's what's really cool about that is like, how do we keep taking those learnings and keep reapplying them and feeding them into AI models so it doesn't get lost or siloed somewhere?
Gosh, and it's even a hard thing to know. Like maybe the project itself, like if it was a technical project, maybe the code didn't ship,
Mm,
but maybe the stories did.
mm,
So maybe the stories went and changed people and changed the world, and you never really have a way to know. So something that I think about is, yeah, I'm I'm a big fan of Albert Einstein. Like, what hospital was Albert Einstein born in?
uh, uh, I don't know that he was born in a hospital in
We don't
Austria, right?
know,
We don't
right?
know.
And and that's the thing. Like, he went on to have revolutionary insights that changed the world, but we don't know what hospital he was born in. In some ways, innovation programs or even innovation ideas that create these stories that seed people and inspire people to do different things, we don't know where they were born.
Hmm.
And you can't always take credit for it. Like, and so sometimes trying to take credit for it is like being that hospital Albert Einstein was born in and asking his parents, like, why did you never tell me that our hospital had this impact in the world?
Yeah. Yep. Assuming that birth went just fine.
Right, right. So imagine if there was a midwife who that birth wasn't going fine, and
Mhm.
they or some birth they saved somebody's life that went on to win the Peace Prize.
Mhm.
Is that midwife like gone back and given the credit for that?
Most women who contributed to Nobel Prizes didn't get recognition. I don't think the midwife is going to wind up getting recognition. So I noticed behind your head there, it says storytelling on your whiteboard behind
Oh, yeah.
it. Yeah. So you're quite the storyteller yourself. You have a book coming out next year called The Inside Job. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Oh, sure, thanks. And this wasn't a prop for today. This is an actual me. This is an actual thing that I focus on. I believe storytelling is so important
I couldn't
to
agree more.
moving projects forward. In some ways, the stories themselves can be the triggers of innovation. But about the book, like something I realized is that I told the story of Connor. I told the story of Roberto. I could tell stories of other leaders. I realized for a lot of them, they were like heist crews. So if you're a fan of heist movies, like there's often a mastermind that comes up with this idea. Then they recruit a diverse group of people. They're diverse in skills, they're diverse in attitudes, they're diverse in backgrounds, and they work together to pull this off. So with Roberto, he had a team of people, including Mario and his wife, and there were other people: Jacobo, Ricardo, Pritika, Cole, all of these other people on the team that they wouldn't have been successful without those teams. And
Right.
that crew is sort of like figuring out who might be the executive sponsors for their project. So in a way, it's like they're figuring out which vault is going to be the one that they need to break into. And I'm not advocating stealing from the corporation. Instead, you're trying to find a mark that of a sponsor who you could have mutual benefit, as I talked about before. You could bring them the puppy that they care about if that's what they want. And you're bringing them a project that's going to help move things forward. But in order to do that, you have to learn about them. So that's the stakeout. And then There's that spot in the movie where everybody's making the devices or practicing, and a lot of that is like the planning and the making. Then you actually go in and you pull off the job. And so that job is like you pack your explosives. What are the big stories of impact that you're going to tell, or the big numbers you're going to drop in the meeting? You need to have your decoders. Like, you need to understand what it is about that sponsor that will align to them and work. You need to understand what are the counters to any arguments that they might have. And that's one of the reasons that you need to talk to people in their organization before you come in, because you need to be able to have countermeasures for almost anything that's going to come up in this meeting. So you have to practice. These teams have to practice how they're going to respond to objections. After the meeting, now you might think you have it. You got to reply right away, and you got to thank them not for their time, but for their commitment to the mission. Basically, you say, hey, I'm still expecting, we need some way to get what was in the vault back into our house so we could use it, and whatever that is. And sponsors are busy, and they're giving off things that were in their vault to a lot of other people. And if you're not following up, they're not going to necessarily give it to you. So you have to make sure you can escape with it.
Oh, interesting. Uh-huh.
Then there's often a twist that happens, right? Like, Susan, have you ever seen a time, like, how many of the projects have you seen where people were not supporting it before, and afterwards they say, you're right, I never supported it, you had me, good on you? Like, how often does that happen?
Not a lot.
What happens?
Yeah, I mean, everyone wants to take credit once the puppy is
They
already,
take credit. Yeah, they say,
trained.
oh, I supported you all along, I gave you time to work on this,
Uh-huh.
right? And then they try to take it over and run it. So that's the twist that shows up in the heist movie, and how you escape that. And then there's also the legacy that you want to build. So after you've pulled off this successful heist, what do you go and do next?
Mm.
And so I've implied a little bit about what Connor's was and what Roberto's is, but everybody for their own needs to figure that out. So my book follows the methods I've learned, having an 85% success rate helping projects get sponsorship. I compare it to a heist movie to make it fun and easy to follow. It's de-jargonized completely. It's for anybody who wants to help get buy-in in their organization. It's a fun, tight read, packed with stories and to-dos that you could follow from beginning to end.
Sounds amazing. And when is it coming out? Where can people find it?
It's going to come out. So the book's called The Inside Job, the Masterminds Toolkit, or sorry, the Intrapreneurs Toolkit to Mastermind Meaningful Change and Innovation. It's going to come out in the spring of 2026.
Fantastic. Okay, well, we're going to have you on again to talk about the book. I'm a
I'd
big
love
fan of The Italian Job. That's one of my favorite heist movies. I
to.
just love all those Mini Coopers going through the streets and figuring out how they got those gold bars inside. But I think with innovation, gold is the goal. But I love that, like figuring out what's the right puppy for your sponsor, your mark. I wonder if our sponsors want to be called that.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's something I'm struggling with in the book. So if people think of a better way I could put it in there, there's still time to change it in revisions.
Yeah, I love all of those Oceans 11 through 13 movies. They're a lot of fun. Okay, I'm going to ask you the three questions I ask everyone who comes on the show. Ed, what is the greatest innovation of all time?
I'd have to say the written word.
That's a good one for us storytellers, for sure.
Yeah, essential to storytelling.
Yeah, and you certainly feel it when you're trying to write a book, right? The agony and the ecstasy of that. So, to which you might add the printing press as a great innovation behind it. Okay, what innovation team would you have joined throughout the course of human history?
So I researched this question quite a bit. I wanted to find something older, and I realized like most of the innovation teams older were about, there was agriculture. Most of them were about war, innovations around how to fight. I didn't want to pick one of those.
Mm.
At a certain period, there were not innovation teams that were having lots and lots of innovation. The speed of that didn't exist in a lot of places. There were some in Fertile Crescent. There were some in ancient China. I was looking in feudal era Japan. Most were not very diverse.
Hmm.
I was originally thinking the Manhattan Project, but I didn't like that they were making a bomb. But I was fascinated by the physicists at the turn of the century, of the previous century. I like just study them all the time, but that wasn't quite right. So I ended up picking Thomas Edison's lab.
Mm.
That's what I would like to be a part of. Like if I go to modern, like in some ways, the one I'm in is the one I want to be in. Like what I work in the Microsoft garage is my dream job, Susan. And it's just been wonderful being a part of it. So it's hard to pick a contemporary one. So I have to go back a bit further. Thomas Edison's lab is the one I'm talking about. It's pure, like lots of different inventions, but not only inventions, but figuring out how to actually tie it to society and human good, which is what innovation is to me. Making an invention work in an ecosystem so that it helps people is how I think about like the fruit style of what innovation is. And that's where I set it on Edison's lab.
Yeah. Fantastic. I don't know if you've ever had the chance to be there. I've gone and toured his lab, which is mind blowing to see everything from the phonograph to the first movie camera, motion picture camera, the light bulb, and so many more synthetic rubber. I mean, just the breadth of it was incredible. What's fascinating is that they all had unlimited time to work on their budget was not a question. But what was unassailable was the fact that Edison took credit for every patent. If you came to work in his lab,
Yeah. That was
you lost the
that
right
was
to
one of
say
the
it was
things
you.
like I was trying to find one that wasn't named after a person where the person's name wasn't known. So a runner up for me was Da Vinci,
Mm.
but again, Da Vinci took credit. Like I going back further, Pythagoras, like took credit. Like I was trying to find the name of an innovation team, but I'd be really curious to see the data of what other people picked for this answer.
Yeah. So Walter Isaacson's book, The Innovators, disproves the theory of the single genius
Yeah.
and talks all about the teams who never got credit behind the people. We're going to remember Steve Jobs. We're going to wind up forgetting about Wozniak, unfortunately. Right. So this is how we build up heroes in our mind as part of our storytelling. All right.
Right.
Last question. What is the innovation that the world needs now?
I believe in this concept of wise technology. I think there's all of this focus on artificial intelligence, and I think it's amazing. We need the wisdom counterpart to that.
Mm.
How can our LLMs or like how can the AI be, is it artificial wisdom? I don't quite like the term, so I call it wise technology, but technology that augments human wisdom is what we need.
And I will leave it there. Ed, if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
They could find me on my website, edessey.com. It's just how my name's spelled, edessey.com.
Got you. And to learn more about the Microsoft Garage.
To learn more about the Microsoft Garage, they could go to garage.microsoft.com.
Fantastic. Ed, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Susan.